Number 10. Rare blood disease. What's a Hulk to do when they lack control over their own monstrous transformation? Why, recruit a vampire to help you do so, of course. Monster to monster, so to speak. Before She-Hulk could control her transformation, she would become the Hulk in a similar way to Bruce, whenever she got angry. It wasn't until Savage She-Hulk issue 11 and 12 where she almost died from a rare blood disease and sought the help of Morbius, vampire and brilliant hematologist, that this changed. He gave her a serum that cured her disease and also allowed her to gain control of her transformative abilities. And voila, we were given the capable and in control She-Hulk that we still have today. Number 9. She almost died. Jennifer Walters actually became She-Hulk as a result of almost dying. When Bruce goes to find Jen in issue 1 of the Savage She-Hulk, we find out she's been practicing criminal law, and it is her involvement in the criminal world that gets her shot at for working to put criminals away. Bruce is with her at the time and works hard to keep cool so he can help Jen before she bleeds out. He breaks into a doctor's house conveniently across the street, where no one is home, and uses the doctor's medical equipment to give her an emergency blood transfusion. Whose blood does he use? Why, his own, of course. It's all he has at the time. Yeah, there's a lot of suspension of disbelief required in the first few pages of this issue. Anyways, while recovering in the hospital, the goons who shot her return to finish the job. When becoming enraged, she transforms into the She-Hulk. Talk about a frightening situation. Number 8. Her addiction. Walters has never really made it a secret in the comics that she prefers being the She-Hulk. In fact, the interesting thing about her relationship with being green versus her cousins is that while Bruce thinks of his Hulk ego as something that is a hindrance to his humanity, Jennifer thinks of it as an asset. She finds that she is more confident as She-Hulk. Keeping in mind she still also has a level head when she transforms, but still, it is kind of scary how much she loses herself in her transformation. Or at least thinks she does. In She-Hulk Volume 2 issue 19, we see her condemned as being a She-Hulk addict in court by Mallory Book, and from there Jennifer decides to explore what it is about herself as She-Hulk that she is addicted to. The sweet resolution to this horror story is she realizes that either way, she is still herself, and regardless of whether she is human or Hulk, she never backs down from a fight. Yay, confidence boosts. What was that?
Number 7. Ruby Thursday. Every hero has got their weirdo villains. Honestly, She-Hulk has a bunch, but the one that gave me the most pause would be Thursday Rubenstein, aka Ruby Thursday. Her powers are, well, interesting. Ruby's head has been somehow replaced with a mass of organic circuitry that allows her to fire energy blasts, create tentacles and blunt weapons, shapeshift into disguises and other forms, and her head can even completely detach from her body and fly around dodging attacks and stuff. All those powers are just from her head, in case that wasn't clear. She is also considered to be one of the most intelligent people on the planet, great with engineering, physics, and computers. Ruby Thursday first appeared in Defenders number 32 as part of a team of villains called the Headmen, and after her fights against the Defenders, Ruby appeared in Sensational She-Hulk number 1. In this story, She-Hulk and Spider-Man find out that Ruby has decided to try and steal She-Hulk's body in order to replace a fellow member of the Headmen's body. Right? That makes sense. And after they get defeated, her and the Headman would later try the exact same thing, but with Spider-Man's body instead. I thought she was smart. Doesn't really seem like it.
Number 6. Married to Man-Wolf. So, to me, it isn't super scary that she was in fact married to John Jameson, aka Man-Wolf. Just because he's a wolf doesn't mean he doesn't deserve some love, and the two were kind of a cute monster mash pair. The scary part to me about their marriage and love affair was that it was never real. I mean, it was real, they got married, but it only happened because they were both under the influence of StarFox's power. That's right, he made them feel love for each other and eventually get married. Once She-Hulk finds out about this in She-Hulk Volume 2, the same series in which she and John were actually shown to have fallen in love and get married, she ends up filing for a divorce and annulling their marriage. Could you imagine a world where you were forced to stay with a partner, in fact marry them, but you thought you had wanted to, only to find out that you were somehow manipulated into that? That sounds pretty terrifying to me. Not to mention, as sweet as John can be, he also spent a lot of their time together trying to get Jennifer to give up She-Hulk entirely. Not cool, John. And definitely not cool, StarFox.
Number 5. House of M. She-Hulk. So, on Earth 58163, Wanda Maximoff gives birth to 2 twins. Vision's at her side, all is great, happy family, except all is not great. She's actually in a dark room on Genosha. Professor X and her father Magneto discussing how she is too powerful and this simply isn't enough. It's all in her head. So this House of M event is not a great time. You know, Jennifer Walters, while all this is going down, specifically in House of M issue 5, was a successful lawyer working alongside Daredevil, aka Matt Murdock. Luckily, she was one of the heroes who got their memory returned and was responsible for helping set the world back to a better state. Also, side note, I'm gonna call it now. This is gonna be the main plot of WandaVision, or at least part of it. She-Hulk being announced after WandaVision, seeing the alternate realities with Wanda and Vision, I'm on to you guys. I have some ideas.
Number 4. Gray She-Hulk. Even though Bruce and Jen are very different kind of Hulks, sometimes their plights are one and the same. After the death of Bruce Banner in the Civil War II event, Jen was shaken to her core and became very connected with her darker side. More specifically, she went gray. If you're familiar with the Hulk but not as familiar with the Hulk family, you may think that doesn't sound so bad. After all, when Bruce typically goes gray, he becomes much more level-headed, smart, like Jen normally is when she's green. So what happens when Jennifer Walters goes gray? Well, she becomes more like Bruce's standard Green Hulk, a monster who's hard to connect with. And trust me when I tell you, this side of her is pretty scary. In Hulk Volume 5, which featured Jennifer Walters as the main character in the absence of Bruce, we get to see her deal with the monster within, a side that is not normally explored with her character. Also, it's just really well written, so yay!
Number 3. Titania. Mary McFerrin, aka Titania, is the prime arch nemesis to Jennifer Walters' She-Hulk. She first appeared in Marvel Superhero Secret Wars number 3 and got her powers from Dr. Doom alongside Volcana, who is number 4. Her main thing is that she believed that she was the strongest woman on the planet, which was taken away from her after She-Hulk beat her silly in their first fight. Instead of just giving up and accepting her defeat, Mary began obsessively training to beat and be better than She-Hulk. While she came close so many times, I mean, she's the villain, so she is unfortunately fated to lose. She even came to possess the Power Stone at one point to fight She-Hulk, but again, she just couldn't quite cut it. Interestingly though, she actually is married to another villain on this list. One who has some interesting absorption powers. And together they join Baron Zemo's Masters of Evil. She also has tried to live a normal life for a time, but that didn't work out. Too bad, so sad. Move on with your life. Come on, let's go.
Number 2. Survivor of Assault. In the newer Avengers series from 2018, we see She-Hulk wrestle with her appearance in issue 20. In this issue, we see her ugly side fighting her old version, her pinup side. Old She-Hulk berates new She-Hulk for being ugly, a stick in the mud, too serious. The two sides of herself end up getting so heated over the idea of what her identity should be that they devolve to blows over who is right. Jen also opens up about her feelings on being She-Hulk. Yeah, she's had fun and felt confident, and she's looked amazing, but she is fighting for her freedom in this issue to be ugly because of all the other stuff that she has had to deal with, namely sexual assault. She opens up about unwanted advances and having nude pictures of her published, and laments how her cousin Bruce has always envied her falsely, as although she was admired, she also has had to deal with a lot of sleazeballs groping her, something Bruce never seems to have to deal with. Ladies, in comics, it's hard. Number 1. Her and Bruce hooked up. Yeah, this almost happened in canon in one of the Incredible Hulk annuals, and everyone was pretty shocked. And then it actually happened. On an alternate Earth in Old Man Logan, and everyone was just straight up grossed out. While it isn't shown in the series, it is implied that Jen was the only one left for Bruce to mate with, but that still doesn't really excuse the behavior here. It's also never specified as to whether or not this interaction is consensual, though they have more than one kid together, so I certainly hope so.
Number 10. Zombie She-Hulk. First appearing in Marvel Zombies Dead Days issue number 1 in 2007, this is arguably one of the most fun versions of Jennifer Walters, depending on how you classify fun. This story takes place on Earth 2149 after a zombie plague, which you may have probably guessed by now. This comic is super dark and gory. It's kind of awesome too. Even before She-Hulk comes in, it's traumatizing. When Jennifer arrived at the Avengers mansion, she was a little shocked to see the current condition of the Avengers, you know, being crazy zombies and all. It wasn't long at all before she herself was zombified, and after that point, ooh, look out, Buster. She then went on to kill Franklin Richards and his sister Valeria. So you can imagine the look on the Fantastic Four's face when they returned. They weren't too pleased. Specifically Susan Storm, who blew up Jennifer's head with a force field. Ew. Number 9. Future Imperfect She-Hulk. Taking place in the Future Imperfect storyline, of course, this version of She-Hulk is a bit strange. See, here she's referred to as Shulk, which I like better than She-Hulk. Has a better ring to it. Shulk. Kinda sounds like when you drop a wet bathing suit. Shulk. So specific, but there you go. So in this issue we have the Abomination, the Hulk, and the She-Hulk. and after a nuclear fallout, they're much more powerful. See, the Hulk ended up becoming Maestro. I did a list about Hulks as well, so if you like this one, go check out Maestro and other crazy versions of the Hulk over there. Shulk, on the other hand, doesn't have hands, rather, she has talons. So Emil and Shulk tried to take down the Maestro, but of course failed, because I mean, look at him. So Shulk ended up becoming locked away in a sarcophagus for 7 years. 7 years! So in that time, Emil took over Castle Maestro after Maestro's disappearance. And then he put She-Hulk in his bedroom where he planned to make him his wife. Okay, weirdo? So she woke up, saw Emil touching her hair, and she's like, okay, weirdo, stop. So she knocked him out nice and quick, and then learned that Betty 6 was pregos with Maestro's child. So she went into the past with Caspin with a plan to kill the woman and to end Maestro's family line. Okay, so she and Caspin ran into Cyberslick, and they tell the two where the woman is. So Shulk shows up, beats the hell out of Abomination, easy, and right as she's about to kill Betty 6, boom, Caspin kills her with his mental powers. What a ride. If you want to see this for yourself, check out Abomination's #1. Number 8, Earth 1610. The Ultimate Universe. Jennifer Walters, or no, Betty Ross. That's right, Betty Ross is playing the not-so-jolly Green Giant on Earth 1610. Making her first appearance in Ultimates issue 3, the daughter of General Ross was roommates with Janet Van Dyne in college. So Janet started seeing Hank Pym, who we don't really like, and she started dating Bruce Banner. So a couple of things happened with Bruce as he was trying to crack the super soldier serum, and he ended up becoming the Hulk, as we all should know by now. So as she watched the Hulk rip people apart, she actually grew to like him even more. She's like, strong man, I like the way you rip their spinal cords out. Let's go for a coffee. Now Bruce had actually been out on trial and been given the death sentence, being, you know, the Hulk and all. And she was devastated. So Jennifer Walters, like the Jennifer Walters, had cracked the code on the serum at this point. Betty Ross lied to Fury and said that Jennifer Walters was planning on selling the serum. Survey says that was also a lie. She was actually just pirating the new Star Trek early. And have you seen the new Star Treks, honestly? I did it too. They're pretty good, they're great. So not quite as bad as we thought, right? I mean, Betty injected the serum right before jumping out of a shield jet and landed on the ground saying, "What up, y'all? I'm Plan B." Pretty cool entry, if you ask me. I don't know if she said y'all, but she should have. Betty fought Wolverine and actually managed to gouge his eye out. Wolverine, being Wolverine, still ended up winning the battle and forcing Betty to wear a collar that will choke her to death if she becomes Shulk again.
Number 7. All the hate surrounding She-Hulk's Disney Plus series. One of the scariest things in my mind, as well as the silliest, is all the hate surrounding She-Hulk right now. Fortunately, it is being combated by as much love as fans of her comics can muster, as well as a personal Twitter welcome from the man who portrays her cousin himself in the MCU, Mark Ruffalo. But still, there are some people who were next level triggered by Disney's announcement surrounding the She-Hulk series. People are making comments involving how her show will just involve her making sandwiches in the kitchen. And I even read a comment where someone angrily wrote in all caps, "Hulk doesn't need to be a girl," as though they thought Disney was gender swapping the Hulk for the series. Another comment stated, "We have female Thor, female Hulk, what's next, Spider-Woman?" I hope so. I personally love Jessica Drew. These comments make me want to send these ignorant nerds to make me a sandwich in the kitchen while I read them some sensational She-Hulk. I'll share my sandwich with them too.
Number 6. HYDRA She-Hulk. Okay, this is a fun one. So Jennifer Walters of Earth 9997 ends up being infected by HYDRA creatures that were created by Norman Osborn. I mean, look at these things. Imagine waking up to that. Well, she didn't. Yeah, like many others, when she was infected, her soul ended up in the realm of the dead. Her body, on the other hand, became the host of Queen Hydra. I feel like I'm a good vessel too. I mean, these lanky arms are kind of like tentacles. They're not as slippery though, you know? Maybe when I'm jogging, they get a little bit wet. I feel like she's slippery. I don't know, that's what I'm trying to say. So, after the new and improved Queen Hydra led the other Hydras, they dominated S.H.I.E.L.D. And then they eventually moved to New York, the city that never sleeps, because, you know, there's monsters everywhere, all the time. She-Hulk's soul remained in the realm of the dead until she was recruited by Mar-Vell on a quest to kill death. You heard me.
Number 5. Unum. Unum is an interesting villain. She was actually created by the cosmic entity Enmity, out of remnants of other really powerful villains. And her sole purpose for existing is to end the existence of all female superheroes. Technically it's all heroes, but she's starting with female superheroes. She is a 10-foot tall tower of power wielding a giant axe, and she is honestly kinda scary. She first appeared in She-Hulk Cosmic Collision #1, in which she de-lifed one of the most powerful heroes on an alien planet called Yor. And then she jumped to Earth to come whack our lovely She-Hulk, who fights alongside Jacinda. Now, how can a being like this be destroyed by She-Hulk? Yeah, She-Hulk's strong, but I think it was her lawyering that was her superpower here, as she convinced Unum that enmity is just using her, which caused Unum to rebel and destroy herself. Well played, Jen. Well played.
Number 4. Earth A She-Hulk. Also known as Earth 721, Earth A was home to another Jennifer Walters, of course. This version didn't have superpowers like our 616 Earth does. So she decided it would be a fun little vacation to take Albert E. DeVore's technology and travel to another universe to get the same superpowers as that Jennifer Walters. So, while on the other Earth, Jennifer fought Rhino and even had an affair with the Juggernaut. Okay, making your rounds, I get it. Not exactly my ideal vacation, but I'm not knocking it. So, of course, being another Jennifer Walters, she was caught. Then they had this plan that the depowered Jennifer Walters would go to her Earth 721, while the new powered multiverse Jennifer from Earth 721 would stay on Earth 16. How do you like them numbers? So it's a little swap, a fun little swappy swap. However, during the trans-dimensional transfer, Reed Richards was able to return her powers back to her. Nice. So they both ended up staying in their appropriate universes. How lovely.
Number 3, that time she ripped Vision in half. If you needed more proof that She-Hulk is someone you don't want to mess with, here it is. Before the events of House of M and Avengers Disassembled, She-Hulk is influenced by Scarlet Witch and flies into a rage and becomes the villain for a few issues. By the way, in case you were unaware, the more angry She-Hulk gets, the stronger she gets. She even rips Vision in half. Granted, he's kinda like dead at the time anyways, but still, she rages real hard, knocking down Cap without so much as a second thought. Boom, take that, Cap.
Number 2, Old Man Logan. Hulk Gang! Okay, so if you don't know, Earth 807-128, even more numbers for you, was home to Hulk Gang. Now, Hulk Gang sounds like a fun time. Hulk Gang is what happens when all the supervillains take over the US. So Bruce Banner is like, hey, you know, we have some crazy similar powers, we need backup, you're the only person I can kinda mate with. What do you say? And Jennifer Walters agreed to go through with it, and it wasn't long before Hulk Gang came along. This version of Jennifer Walters is super powerful. Her, Daredevil, and Moon Knight are amongst like one of the few remaining soups. She kicked Wolverine Old Man Logan Giant Size Issue 1. Go check it out right now. And finally, number 1, Lyra. I feel like I have to say it with an accent, Lyra. Taking place on Earth 8009, beginning with Hulk Raging Thunder Issue 1, we find Lyra Walters, or sometimes referred to as Savage She-Hulk, is the daughter of Thundra and Earth 616 Hulk. Yeah, so she's from Earth 8009 in the 23rd century, and at that time the Earth was split into different factions. So the guys faction were like warriors, you know, like they looked up to past heroes like Wolverine, just men, you know. And then the women came together under the United Sisterhood Republic, and they were outgunned and outmanned, literally. So Thundra got sent to Earth 616, where she met that Earth's Hulk. Had the baby, and Lyra actually gets stronger when she's calm too, which is cool. It kind of reminds me of my mom. Whenever she was quiet and still, I knew I was in some trouble. So she's able to tap into gamma sight, which means she basically can see the flow of gamma radiation. She's one with the gamma. And like all over the world too, not just within her sight range. So she becomes a smarter, smoother fighter in this state. And if she becomes angry, however, she will actually become weaker. But even at her weakest though, she's still as strong as Spider-Man, so come on.
Number 10, Nicholas Trask. We're starting off this list with a regular human, but that doesn't mean he isn't important. Nicholas Trask is a crime lord and gangster, and it was his villainy that actually created the She-Hulk when she first appeared in Savage She-Hulk #1. Not only that, but he is actually responsible for the passing of Jennifer's mother and best friend. He ain't a good dude. When Jennifer was defending another gangster in court, one who was double-crossed by Trask, Trask nearly ended her life as well. And on the second attempt at her life, she was exposed to the gamma radiation that transformed her into She-Hulk. Similar to how her cousin Bruce Banner became the Hulk. But he's still just a plain old humie, so number 10 for you, Nicholas. Number 9, Clockwise. Anyone who messes around with time has a power that can be potentially very powerful. Clockwise was a time-traveling villain from the Earth 6023. While he is a regular human, he wears a special suit that gives him his powers of limited time travel back and forth through time. He also uses a weapon called the retroactive cannon, which gives him the ability to erase heroes from existence. A pretty alarming thing to be able to do, to say the least. When he first appeared in She-Hulk Volume 2 number 3, he infiltrated the Time Variance Authority. Yes, the TVA, while She-Hulk was there on trial, and using his cannon, he began eliminating some heroes. Luckily, She-Hulk was able to beat him, but we honestly don't know much else about him at all. I hope he shows up again because, I don't know, I think he's got some potential. Number 8. Ultima. First appearing in Savage She-Hulk number 9, Ultima is one of She-Hulk's better rogues gallery members. Ultima Wordman, yes, that's her actual name, is the daughter of a cult leader named The Word, and she dated a man who was part of said cult called Randolph Harrington. Now unfortunately for Ultima, Randolph wasn't really a fan of cult life and wanted out. His parents hired Jennifer Walters as a lawyer to help, so obviously Ultima ain't too friendly with Miss Walters already. Ultima had super strength, speed, and durability, and is a really good hand-to-hand fighter, which she utilized to at least match Jennifer Walters in fights a few times. She could also use the two cults she had been a part of to help her in those fights, because having backup always helps, obviously. In the first few conflicts though, she ends up being paralyzed by She-Hulk. That didn't stop her as she just went away, recovered, and came back with a new cult. So yeah, she is pretty dangerous for Miss Hulk.
Number 7, 9939 She-Hulk. Sounds like a hotline, it's not. So this Earth 9939 is this alternate version of our common 616 Earth. So Baron Strucker, the 5th, came from Earth 8410, stay with me here, came from the future into the past of Earth 616 and killed most of our heroes that we know. Wah wah. See, most of our heroes, but not all of them. Jennifer Walters was one of the survivors, and now she lives in this dystopian tech future, even engaging in a relationship with Rhino. You know, Rhino, like Paul Giamatti. Remember Paul Giamatti as Rhino? I mean, the guy's great, never phones it in. Fred Claus, let's go. So, they go back in time to defeat Charnel, to prevent the dark future that they came from. And sure, she died in the final battle, but I think she pulled off enough of her own weight here. Like, kinda crushed it, Jen Waltz. Kinda crushed it.
Number 6. Behemoth. Manfred Haller is a strange one, to say the least. Manfred was a hydraulics engineer who created an exoskeleton that gave its user super strength. But for some reason, he made it in the shape of an elephant. He first appeared in Savage She-Hulk number 17, when he proved the power of his exoskeleton by fighting She-Hulk and nearly defeating her before he stopped the fight. So he is clearly a very intelligent guy who made a pretty powerful invention. So it's kind of confusing to me as to why he would allow this exoskeleton tech to find its way onto the black market, prompting Stark Industries to run him out. After that whole debacle, he ended up coming into contact with a shard of a crystal of Sidorak, which turned the elephant exoskeleton into his actual exoskeleton, which is a form he can switch in and out of at will. He then returned as the villain known as Behemoth, or Man-Elephant. He is strange for sure, but do not underestimate the power of this guy.
Number 5, StarFox's defense. Even more terrifying is somehow Jennifer ended up as StarFox's defense lawyer. Granted, this was before she knew she was being manipulated, but really, Jennifer? This case involved a lot of instances of evidence against StarFox. It's made pretty clear that he was actually manipulating even the court the whole while. You might be thinking, I know what's happening here. When they had the trial later on Titan where She-Hulk found out about her false relationship with John, she was going to find out that StarFox was manipulating her the whole time. But no, they did not give her an easy way out. She actually discovered that while she had been influenced by StarFox in regards to her feelings about Man-Wolf, she had not been influenced into defending him or sleeping with him. Yikes! If anything, the way this whole StarFox sexual assault thing was handled and written is just scary in and of itself.
Number 4. Volcana. Marsha Rosenberg was alongside Mary McFerrin when Dr. Doom gave the two powers to fight for him. Marsha was given the power to transform into volcanic plasma, stone, or ash, which is honestly kind of really cool. But alongside that, she also got superhuman strength in her stone form as well as superhuman durability. Volcana would fight She-Hulk so many different times. But the villain's life wasn't for her. During Secret Wars, she actually had a relationship with the astronomically powerful molecule man Owen Reese. But not too much later, she returned to the life of scum and villainy, fighting She-Hulk again and losing again. These villains never learn, man, I'm telling you.
Number 3, Spider-Gwen She-Hulk. This is a fun one. Okay, I would straight up watch countless hours of this one. So Jennifer Walters doesn't have Hulk powers in this one, right? but I had to include her in this specific list because she's a regular human and she kills it. She's a regular person. She paints herself green because she wants to. So on this Earth 65, starting in issue 7 of Spider-Gwen Volume 2, Jen Walters was actually a pro wrestler. Yeah, and if that wasn't already intimidating enough, she ended up becoming Gwen Stacy's defense attorney. This show would be epic. I really hope we get something similar for her Disney Plus show. Just painting herself green, getting hyped up. Maybe she grew up watching the Avengers on the news, gets herself all amped up, slams people through some tables, go to court, shake some hands. That's a warrior right there, people. I need to see this. Debit. I'm buying this movie.
Number 2, Absorbing Man. The man who would become this overpowered villain first appeared in Daredevil number 1, but it wasn't until Journey into Mystery number 114 that he gained his powers. Absorbing Man has the power to take on the properties of anything he touches. He was able to mimic the properties of Thor's hammer Mjolnir, the strength of Thor himself, and also the power of the Odin Force. And he has even become pure gamma energy at one point. It's honestly kind of ridiculous. In his fight with She-Hulk in She-Hulk Volume 2 number 23, She-Hulk actually reveals one of his main weaknesses. While he is able to control what he absorbs, he can't control it if there is like just too much of whatever thing is around him. So for example, like if you put Carl here in a room and you fill that room up with like a ton of oranges or something like that, Carl wouldn't be able to resist taking on the properties of an orange. So now you can think about how that works because I've had an absolute enough of this. Okay, let's move on. Number 1, Abomination. Another gamma mutate. Emil Blonsky has historically mainly been a Hulk villain, and he still is, but him and She-Hulk have had their fair share of run-ins. With the new She-Hulk show coming up, in which Abomination will play a large part, it's only fair to mention him. And as he is an incredibly powerful villain that has given even the Hulk some trouble, he deserves to be here. Apart from his immense strength and durability, Abomination can generate toxic gamma radiation that's lethal to anyone who comes close, besides other gamma mutates, like She-Hulk. He also has an incredibly strong healing factor that gives him a massive leg up in battle. He first appeared in Tales to Astonish number 90 as a Russian spy who intentionally gammas himself into becoming this monstrous thing. So as a spy, he also comes with all that knowledge and combat experience. Not to mention that he retained all of his intelligence because, I mean, can't turn back into a human, so it's only fair that he's at least smart too, I guess.